What's up guys, Lifting here. In this video we're going to talk about one of the new skill gems introduced in patch 2.1. It is Siege Ballista, a new bow skill and totem skill released in 2.1. It looks something like this when you spawn it, and as the text reads, it summons a totem that attacks with piercing arrows. This skill has 100% pierce chance, and it attacks slowly but deals increased damage. So when it attacks, it charges up and then it shoots. So it's slower than if you were, for instance, to use a ranged attack totem linked with, whatever is active skill gem, such as split arrow, for instance. And the keywords we have for this is totem, attack, duration, and bow. And so if we talk about the first keyword here, totem, it means that this skill can be scaled via totem nodes, and that a keystone such as Ancestral Bond works for this attack. So when you pick up Ancestral Bond, normally you will only be able to summon one, but if you have Ancestral Bond, it's like with any other totem, you'll be able to summon two of these. It also means that totem nodes such as Totemic Mastery, Shaman's or Shamanistic Fury, Shaman's Dominion, Totemic Seal, etc., all of these benefit and improve the skill in some way. The duration node simply refers to how long the totems are up. And by default, you can see that the totems last 8 seconds. If you use increased duration, they will be up for longer. It will not reduce the charge time of the totem, so you cannot make it attack faster by using less duration, unfortunately. I tried that out. And then finally, the bow keyword. And this one is what makes Siege Ballista somewhat interesting. The bow keyword means that this skill needs to be treated like any other bow skill, such as Tornado Shot, Split Arrow, Lightning Arrow, etc. And that means that in order to scale the damage of Siege Ballista, you need to use a good bow, for instance. You need a bow to be able to cast the skill. So if I were to take off one of my Siege Ballista skills, you can see that the other Siege Ballista that I have linked here, I can still not cast that, and that's because it is a bow skill gem. It requires a bow to cast, just like Static Strike requires a melee weapon to be used. And so it also means that in the skill tree, things such as, if you were to do it like this, things such as King of the Hill, Critical Strike with bows, Lethality, Aspect of the Eagle, Heavy Draw, Deadly Draw, these kinds of things, these bow nodes here, typical bow nodes, these will actually scale the damage and benefit the bow you're wearing, the weapon you're wearing, and this will in turn benefit and improve the Siege Ballista skill you're wearing. So basically you need to treat it like any other bow skill. In this case, I'm not going to go into details about the build. I will be releasing a build guide soon though. But in this case I'm scaling it through elemental damage, a bow elemental build. And so I'm of course not going for the physical based skill nodes or notables such as Deadly Draw, Heavy Draw, Aspect of the Eagle, and so on. Instead, I'm going for something like Catalyze, increased elemental damage, and so forth. And one thing that's important when it has the bow keyword is to understand that when something has the bow keyword, it also means that the projectile keyword is implicit. So anything that influences projectiles also works for something that has the bow keyword. So in this case, anything that would scale projectile damage, or the greater multiple projectiles support gem here, for instance, works together with a bow skill, which is what we're using right here. And so let me show you the support gems that I'm currently using for this. I'm using greater multiple projectiles. I feel this is important because it greatly increases the area of effect that the Siege Ballista uses. You can use Rain of Splinters because this is also considered as a totem skill gem. However, I found that with LMP or Rain of Splinters, the area of effect is simply not good enough, in my opinion at least. So I went with greater multiple projectiles. I'm also using weapon elemental damage. This is because this is an elemental build, as I talked about. I'm then using faster attacks, and faster attacks reduces the recharge time of the attacks from the totems. So this is kind of nice. And one thing you definitely feel you want to improve when playing or using this skill is the attack speed, because when the totems are comparatively slower than some of the other bow attacks or ranged attack totem with a split arrow, for instance, the issue sometimes is that if a totem aims at something and then misses, or only aims at one monster and hits that one monster while there's a large pack next to it, then it has to recharge and then it will be able to turn around and shoot at that pack. So if you're having a slow attack speed, it sometimes makes the skill feel a little clunky when it comes to clearing around it. That also means that it's very important that you position the totems effectively when you're running around. And so that means that if there's a monster pack up here, it's very important you place it as far away as possible, because then the totems will be able to shoot out in an effective projectile instead of placing it in the middle, so they will have to shoot in all kinds of directions. And I should probably say here that one of the really sick things that it has a really long range on its attacks. And when you're using skill, you will often experience that when you're attacking something, then you will actually be killing stuff 2 screens away as well. Sometimes you'll be hearing your loot filter warning you that something has dropped, and you will find it 2 screens away because the attack range is so very far on this skill. It's pretty cool, and because of this, I actually think that Siege Ballista is the totem skill of any of the totem skills that has the potential to have the best clear speed in the game, if linked correctly and if, of course, geared correctly. And one thing I haven't been able to confirm on it is if slow projectiles actually reduce the travel distance of the Siege Ballista. I'm using slower projectiles now. It greatly increases the damage of the Siege Ballista, but I'm not sure if it also reduces the travel distance of the projectiles. However, since the distance is still so great, I definitely feel slow projectiles is well worth it. It is a pretty heavy damage multiplier for this type of skill. And so these are the support gems that I am using for an elemental build, but again, this is a bow build. You can use all the typical bow support gems: physical, projectile, attack damage, faster attacks. I'm already using LMP, GMP. You will not be able to use chain because it has 100% chance to pierce, but that's about it. Any other bow skill works with the Siege Ballista, at least from what I've been able to gather so far. And I also decided to use Gem Cutter's Prism on the skill to figure out what one quality would add to the ballista or the totem here. And one quality adds 1% increased totem placement speed. So I think it's safe to assume that with 20 quality, we will have 20% increased totem placement speed. So it's kind of nice. Not that great, but it's kind of nice still. And so the thing you guys are interested in is probably knowing, is this skill powerful? Is it able to carry you through late game, and how does it feel leveling? Well, let's start with leveling. Leveling feels painful, in my opinion. Leveling is slow with Siege Ballista. You can definitely do that if you have a good bow, either a Stormcloud if you're going elemental, and then of course substituting with something better as you level up, or a good physical based bow. You can definitely do that if you want to level with it. However, I think that many people, since we are going for Ancestral Bond, at least if you're going for a dual ballista build, then most people will simply be picking up Flame Totem and leveling with that. I found that to be much more effective, especially because Flame Totem doesn't require you to have any good gear. You just need the levels and that +1 bond. Now, you can of course decide completely not to go for Ancestral Bond and simply use it as a single target skill alongside your bows, and I think maybe some people will be doing that. They'll be running Split Arrow, for instance. They want a single target skill, and maybe they would be interested in using Siege Ballista, and I could see that working. However, to be completely fair, I don't think I would go with the Siege Ballista over something like Puncture, for instance, for a single target skill if I had to choose one of them. So I feel that at the moment Siege Ballista actually works best as a dual type of skill where you pick up Ancestral Bond and then focus primarily on that. And so as for damage late game, I definitely feel that this skill has so much potential to scale really well late into the game. It deals a ton of damage already, and I'm having absolute no issues with damage in those early level maps or Dryad Lake. And this is with really poor gear. Keep in mind this is an elemental based build, and the only thing I really have that works for my elemental based build is this bow. As for my weapons or jewelry, things like that, it's really not that impressive, and I will be able to scale the damage much further. Again, this is the damage I have right now, 5,234. I'm going to be somewhat bold here, but I think we can easily get the damage to 20,000 DPS, which will be more than enough for the highest level of maps with the Siege Ballista. It is a totem, however, and totems will always be slower in the sense that you have to summon the totem, then wait for it to attack, and you have to let the totem attack and aim by itself. So in that sense, a totem will always, almost always at least, be so much slower than a self-cast ability. However, totems opens up for so many other things, like placing them before you go into a room, placing them before opening strong boxes. It has the whole decoy tank thing, so it makes you indirectly much safer. So all in all, I am very, very happy with Siege Ballista. I think it is a really good skill. It's a very powerful skill so far. I was really in doubt in the beginning of the game. When I initially tried Siege Ballista, I did it more like a trolley thing. I just wanted to see if I could make it work. But right now, I'm very happy and very satisfied with how Siege Ballista performs. And I am not in the slightest in doubt of whether or not this skill can work late game. And perhaps I should quickly explain one of my reasons for going Elemental. It is simply because I feel the pathing in the skill tree is much more efficient if you go Elemental. If you're going physical, you will have to go through some weird pathways, you will spend a lot of traveling points, you will go up to Ancestral Bond and not really speccing into too much else. You can use the Lion's Eyes Fall Jewel and put it here, and of course benefit from the melee nodes surrounding it. But when it comes to it, I feel that the Elemental route is more efficient because you have access to Celestial Judgment, Catalyze, of course the Life here as well, Elementalist, Life, and a Righteous Decree, which is what I'm going for. And this also reminds me that the mana cost currently for a 5-link totem is only 34. I have 66 mana right now. That means I can cast 2 totems, and because of the low mana cost, I'm able to actually regen enough mana so that I can place it. I don't have to focus on getting a lot of mana regeneration, etc, etc. I just have to spend a few skill points and reduce the cost a bit. But that's what I want to show you guys. This was a skill impressions video. I hope it was of use. I will be uploading a build guide before the end of this week. Remember to subscribe for more Path of Exile content. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?